Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today we're diving into something super fascinating, and yeah, pretty provocative. We're looking at some recent, highly controversial analysis that's been absolutely blowing up online. The source material we're breaking down today explores what it calls the hidden, calculated side of female psychology. And what makes this specific breakdown so compelling is that it frames these highly debated dating dynamics entirely through the lens of Carl Jung's psychoanalytic theories. It's this wild, gripping blend of deep psychology and modern relationship cynicism.
So the whole premise here anchors on this classic adaptation of Carl Jung's philosophy. Every person has a face they show the world and a face they hide even from themselves. According to the framework we're exploring, women are basically masters of this duality. The argument goes that right behind innocent smiles and soft words, there often lies a complex web of deep calculations, hidden desires, and even cunning, a side that is very carefully masked from society.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've organized these 7 dark secrets from the source material into a quick 6-part breakdown. We'll start with an introduction to dark psychology, then hit validation and upward mobility, look at testing and psychological games, unpack the paradox of dual desires, examine adaptability in the shadow, and finally, wrap it all up with awareness and self-preservation.
Part 1. Introduction to Dark Psychology, Unveiling the Hidden Reality. Now let's just be crystal clear right up front. Our goal today is strictly to analyze this provocative Jungian framework. We're unpacking the arguments, not endorsing them as absolute truth.
Moving into Part 2, validation and upward mobility, the drive for attention and status. Let's look at the source's first big set of claims regarding external behaviors.
The very first secret they outline is pretty blunt. Attention is oxygen. In this framework, the claim is that women literally thrive on attention just to survive socially. So when a woman smiles at a man, it's not necessarily out of genuine affection. Instead, she might just view him as an audience, someone to feed her ego. The analysis argues that they'll draw men in, drain their energy and attention, and the second the tank is empty, they move right along to the next source of validation without a single ounce of regret.
Which brings us to this idea of the perpetual search for a higher class. According to this framework, a woman's gaze is constantly, always looking upward. She's continuously scanning her environment for a stronger, higher status, or better resourced partner. Because of that, the source argues a woman's loyalty is strictly conditional based on a man's current utility. You might be the special guy today, but if someone perceived as an upgrade walks in tomorrow, her mind instinctively pivots toward that new, superior option.
Part 3. Testing and psychological games, interpersonal tactics, and indirect influence. Here's where the focus shifts to specific, day-to-day interactions.
To explain this kind of emotional testing, the source brings us back to Jung's concept of the anima, basically the inner feminine aspect of the soul. The big claim here is that women use this inner intuition to subconsciously and continuously test a man's true strength. And how exactly do they do that? Well, through sudden bouts of silence, maybe some unprovoked insults, or just a swift withdrawal of affection. It's framed as this endless psychological game to see if a man will emotionally break or just lose his cool. If he breaks, he's weak. If he stays calm, he passes. Well, at least until the next test.
And this brilliantly illustrates the 4th secret from the text. A woman's true power lies in her indirect influence. She wins wars without weapons. Women, the analysis asserts, rarely go for direct confrontation. Instead, they completely manipulate the environment around them. We're talking guilt, strategic tears, subtle little suggestions to steer things exactly where they want them. The real kicker here? These tactics are supposedly designed to make the man feel like he's the king making all the big decisions, when in reality, he's just acting out a play on a stage she built. All right, Part 4. The paradox of dual desires, the conflict of madness and security. This is where we dive deep into a serious internal psychological conflict.
So, this conflict presents a really fundamental split. On one side, you've got madness and fire, that exciting, risky guy who spikes her heart rate and brings that thrill of danger. But then, on the exact opposite side is security and stability, the dependable guy who offers a safe, totally predictable life. The core argument here is that a woman actually wants a single man to embody both of these extremes, which, let's be real, is almost impossible.
Looking at this through the Jungian lens, the devastating fallout of this paradox really starts to make sense. The quote goes, "A woman has both a shadow and a light. The shadow pulls her to risk, the light guides her to safety. Because finding both fire and safety in one single person is so incredibly rare, the source claims women will often passionately desire the risky man, the shadow, in their minds, while physically settling down to build a life with a stable provider, the light. This inherent division is supposedly the exact reason why guys who think they're doing everything right by providing often end up completely heartbroken, just unable to satisfy both of those conflicting desires.
Moving to part 5, adaptability and the shadow, the unconscious reality. Let's get into some of the absolute darkest assertions made by this framework.
Secret number 6 is all about the sheer speed of replacement. The idea is that while a guy might be totally devastated, losing sleep over a bad breakup, a woman's unconscious mind adapts incredibly fast. Fueled by this endless stream of validation and endless options on social media, she can supposedly replace men as easily as changing outfits. It's a pretty cynical view, honestly, suggesting a man is just another face in the crowd, and her ability to quickly forget, adapt, and move on is her ultimate psychological advantage.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how everything ties together into the 7th and final secret, Jung's concept of the shadow. This represents the hidden, suppressed side of our personality, the part holding all the greed, cruelty, and raw self-interest. The framework claims that every woman hides this dark side behind an innocent smile just to stay socially acceptable. But fair warning, when circumstances change and it benefits her, this selfish, ruthless shadow self inevitably comes out. So when a woman suddenly turns cold, she hasn't actually changed, she's just stopped hiding her true shadow.
Which brings us to our final part, awareness and self-preservation, the final takeaway. So what are we actually supposed to do with all these heavy psychological theories?
Well, we've got this accumulation of 7 traits: attention hunger, emotional testing, upward mobility, indirect manipulation, dual desires, rapid adaptability, and finally the shadow self. Understanding this specific playbook is presented by the source as literally the only way a guy can build up his psychological armor. The argument is that if you memorize these traits and spot them in the wild, you can avoid being manipulated, used, and ultimately broken by the modern dating scene.
But there is a really crucial caveat to all of this that we need to point out. Understanding is not hatred, it is self-preservation. The stated goal of exposing all these traits isn't to inspire misogyny or just blind hate towards women, not at all. Rather, this knowledge is framed entirely as a defensive tool. It's meant to be a way to maintain your own self-respect, set firm boundaries, and just protect yourself from being taken advantage of.
So we've laid out the entire Jungian argument from the source material, but it leaves us with something we really have to ask. Does adopting this framework and constantly watching for the shadow actually protect you? Or does viewing every relationship through such a deeply cynical, calculated lens simply prevent you from ever truly trusting or connecting with someone again? It's a heavy question about the true cost of wearing this kind of psychological armor. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.